Why, if we had a national popular vote, do you think we'd have a lot more third parties popping up? I don't understand that.
1992 is a great example. Ross Perot got 18.9% of the vote. Okay, every disincentive in the world facing him. I myself at the time told people, don't vote for Ross Perot. It's a wasted vote. You might as well cast a vote for, well, some people think it favored Clinton, some people think it favored Bush. But the point is that it was a wasted vote, or it was perceived as a wasted vote to vote for Ross Perot because of the winner-take-all system in each of the states. I live in Texas. In Texas, if whoever gets the most votes there gets all 34 of Texas electoral votes. Ross Perot had no chance of getting Texas.
From Texas.
Right.
And Ross lives in Texas.
That's true. That's true. Despite all of these disincentives, Ross Perot got 18.9% of the vote, mostly because people were so discontent with the two major parties. But he got 18.9% of the vote. So my contention is that without the Electoral College, without that wasted vote disincentive, people like Ross Perot have a much easier time getting even higher than 18.9%. And
so a guy like Ross Perot, a very rich guy, can say, you know what, I can self-fund, and instead of my votes being nothing, if I get 25% of the vote, I actually get 25% of the vote.
Right, 25% nationwide. But now
why
you
is that a bad thing?
well, now you combine it though. Multiple things. One is you combine it with the fact that you don't just have Ross Perot and George Bush and Bill Clinton. You probably have 3 or 4 other people in it also. So you are fracturing the vote. You're fracturing Americans across many candidates, 5, 6, 8, 10 candidates that you are fracturing. You're no longer in a system that motivates us to come together, to work with people that are not like ourselves, to, you know, if you're in Iowa, to go make sure you understand people in Texas, even if you disagree with them a lot, or whatever. In our current system, you have to work with people that are not like yourself. That's good.
In other words, the candidates, in order to get enough electoral votes, have to run around and meet everybody else. You've got to find some way that you're attractive in California and perhaps in Texas, and those are two very different states with very different hot-button issues.
Ronald Reagan did. People have done it. I know people think that's impossible, but people do that. It just becomes wasted effort on the part of a presidential candidate after a while to go hang out in Texas. If you've already got 51% of the vote there, everything else is a wasted effort. Maybe you'll raise a little money or whatever, but what else do you care about?
So in other words, taking back to the last election, there was no question that Obama was going to win California. So he really didn't need to spend a whole lot of time in California except to go there to suck out money for his campaign.
Right.
But if we had a popular vote, he would camp out in California because every extra vote he could get there over the 51% would
and it's probably easier for him to get more votes in California, to ramp up the votes faster in California than to go someplace like Pennsylvania, where maybe he has to work harder. It's a swing state this year. He has to work harder to get those votes and to make those people like him. It's easier to go to where people are already like you. You already know what they want. You're maybe naturally inclined to do that. You go promise them everything you want. And maybe it's not just regions. Maybe it's something like a special interest group. Maybe in this new world where there's no disincentive for third-party candidates, you have a pro-life candidate or a pro-choice candidate or an NRA candidate or whatever, and all they are doing is aiming their campaign at the interest of those people. So this world in which you have multi-parties, while it sounds appealing, I mean, we all want to vote for third parties sometimes, especially me, but while it sounds appealing on the surface, when you get down into it, what you realize is that we are going to create a world in which we fracture Americans, because there's no...
I'm not as worried about that. I mean, that doesn't bother me. It's possible we could fracture Americans now. We've had third parties in the past. We haven't had the two-party system always. It seems as though occasionally parties split and grow into other things, and that's okay. That's been the tradition for the last 200 years. However, what bothers me and what worries me about a popular vote is the election fraud and the idea of a recount. Right now, it is, what, 6, 7 months past the election?
Yeah.
Wait a second. 8 months past the election almost?
It's been a while.
And if you're living in Minnesota, you still don't know who your senator is.
Right.
I remember what happened in Florida back in 2000 and how the center of the universe went back to Dade County and other places to find out, in Broward County, to find out who was going to be president. If we have a national vote, that is a national popular vote, and we need a recount, exactly how does it work?
Well, there's 2 different scenarios. One is we go through a formal constitutional amendment process and we create one national recount standard, which is a whole different ballgame from the legislation that was proposed in Colorado, where they're trying to do an end run around the constitutional amendment process, so the recounts would actually be very different.
I want to get to that, but
okay, so I'll do the constitutional amendment. In the constitutional amendment process, the problem is that you cannot confine problems to any one part of the country. And what's worse is that there are some parts of the country where it's going to be really easy to steal votes. Assume, for argument's sake, without accusing anybody of anything, that in Texas, you could steal votes really easily for Republicans. And that there are probably counties that are extremely friendly. You could rack up as many as you want, and nobody will, it impacts the national total, and nobody can do anything about it. So and in California for Democrats.
So right now, let's assume that Texas goes Republican. Right? They've got 51% Republican. Now, they could get a whole bunch more votes for McCain in the last election, but why would they? Because once they hit that 51%, all the electoral votes go to McCain. So what's the incentive?
Today, there's no incentive. Or if they do it, it's irrelevant.
But if there's
in the new world, it makes all the difference in the world. And it's probably easier for them to do it there. It is, by contrast, really hard for them to steal votes where it matters. It's hard for them to predict where it will matter, but if they can predict where it's going to matter, then everybody knows it's going to matter. Say in Ohio in 2004, lots of people felt like that would be a hot spot. And so there are poll watchers, there's lawyers, there's everything in the world watching that state. And if indeed you do still end up with problems, as occurred in Florida in 2000, well, you've confined it to one area. In 1876, we confined the problem to 4 states, which was so much better than a national recount. You know, massive what's going on in Minnesota right now.
I've heard you say that the mess in Florida was a success. Explain that.
Well, now separate the Electoral College from what was going on with the recounts, because those are 2 completely different issues. But I think that 2000 and 1888, which is the 2 times that we've had a popular vote winner lose the presidency because they won the Electoral College, to me those are successes. They did not reward bad campaign strategies on the part of the popular vote winners. Those popular vote winners were too heavily focused on one type of voter or a handful of type of voters. In 1888, Grover Cleveland was much too focused on the southern states. He had very high margins in the southern states, and he won the popular vote majority, but he did not have broad appeal as his opponent did. He, by the way, learned his lesson 4 years later, came back and won because he figured it out. He figured out, I need to not just be the southern president, I need to be the American president.
I'm looking at Minnesota. Keep going back to Minnesota. 8 months later, we still don't have a winner. If there is any close election, we could go easily 4 years without finding out who our president would be.
It'd be a nightmare. And
I don't know how you'd fix that.
I don't know either.
And the point being that if you're going to steal votes in a national election, if you've got one state that's for you or one city, and you've got New York City, that's the place you count up your votes. You do it. All right. Let's bring it to what was being proposed here in Colorado. And it's interesting. A few years back, I think it was Amendment 34, which was put up by a bunch of people to get rid of the Electoral College here, was to add us to this pact. It got killed by the voters here. This was a purely democratic process. So this was here in Colorado where we have the initiative process. Some rich guys put this on the ballot, and the voters said no. So from there to the more easily swayed state legislature, we came this close to passing this bill this year. Tell me about this compact. I still don't quite get all the intricacies.
This bill basically is, again, being financed by people with lots of money from California, and it basically, they want a certain number of states that hold 270 electoral votes, because that's a majority, that's enough to win the presidency. They want that number of states to sign an interstate compact. Under the terms of the interstate compact, those participating states would agree that they would give their electors to the winner of the national popular vote. So right now, Colorado gives its electors to the winner of the state vote, Colorado. Under this new bill, they would give it to the winner of the national popular vote, even if that person did not win in Colorado, even if that person wasn't on the ballot in Colorado. No matter what, Colorado would be bound to do that.